Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's Jack. Welcome to episode 2 of the Shred series. This is going to be a little bit different. I will probably throw a workout edit at the end of the video, but first thing I'm going to do is pretty much just go over my blood work. So I've never actually gotten my blood work done. I've gotten blood pulled or blood taken for I want to say a co-op a while ago and maybe just general tests, but I probably haven't had it pulled in 4 or 5 years. One quick note, if you have passed out from getting your blood drawn in the past, you don't grow out of it, because I thought, hey, I remember in the past I literally have passed out when someone had my blood drawn. I've had to, they take the blood out, I don't look at it because I don't like needles or blood, and I'll kind of come to, and then I'll just kind of get this tunnel vision and I'll pass out. And I thought, you know what, that was 5 years ago, I'm 25 now, I've outgrown that. Nope, sat in the chair, got the blood drawn, one of the vials, I guess, coagulated or something, so he had to take another one. I was like, just give me a second, and I literally told him, I remember, I was like, oh, I'm starting to get tunnel vision, I think I'm gonna pass out, and I kind of just come to. It's really weird if you've never passed out. It's I don't know, it's like a slideshow, kind of I don't know, you black out, and then a slideshow comes, you kind of come to and kind of wake up, and your body starts to come alive again. But yeah, kind of scary. So if you do get your blood drawn, you think you might pass out, tell them you might pass out and lie down, because I had to go to the other room, lie down, and then get the other arm done. So that's a whole ordeal, but we got the blood test done, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the results. And I'll go ahead and pop up these results on the screen as well. And another quick thing, I am not a doctor. I'm not a lab specialist. I'm simply a guy that want to get his blood work done to have a good baseline as I kind of start prep and end my bulk. And then this would be a good baseline to have, I guess, in by the end of prep, as well as next year, the year after that, and just kind of have some basic levels. I've never had my blood work done, so I decided why not. Also, I did have a quick consult with one of their the doctors. I think, I forget what it's called. If I remember, I'll throw up on the screen who I got it done by, but basically went to LabCorp, which I'm pretty sure is a global company, or at least a national company. They do my blood work, and I talked to the physician who basically, it is a TRT clinic. No, I'm not on TRT. I'm not going to get on TRT, but it's just one of the things where they kind of help you just look over your results, that kind of stuff. FSH and LH, basically, I think he mentioned is your body's ability to naturally produce testosterone. Those are both in the pretty normal ranges, 3.4 and 3.7, which he said was pretty high. Then we have our TSH, T4 free and T3 free. T3 free being 3.4, he said was pretty high, as well as your T4 free being 1.55. He said those are pretty elevated, so higher in the reference interval, as you can see on the right side. Then we go to basically a whole panel of all kinds of stuff, hemoglobin, all that kind of stuff. You can see pretty much everything's in the reference range. He did mention, I think, that he said having the hemoglobin at the higher range would be ideal, so I'm a little bit lower on that reference scale, but nothing's too crazy high or low. White blood cell count, red blood cell count, all normal. Then we'll go into some other things like glucose. I was fasted when I took this test, so that's another thing. It depends on what test you get. You might have to fast before. And I don't know if fasting has anything to do with me passing out. I think it's just I just think about getting my blood drawn, my brain starts to go crazy, and then I pass out. But glucose, he said, was pretty average, right around 91. He said if you weren't fasted, that might be a little bit higher, but just depends. But nothing to worry about there. He said my AG ratio was slightly high, but he said it was so minimal outside the range, that's not something to worry about. As you can see, sodium, potassium, basically all those kind of levels are very normal. Honestly, I expected my sodium to honestly be a little bit higher, just because I do have a lot of salt in my diet, but maybe because I was fasting, my sodium was kind of normal. But yeah, he said everything else was good. Then we go to the lipid panel, and yes, I do have a high LDL cholesterol. He said that's totally normal. He said probably within about 130, it's probably more accurate. And he said this is a LDL cholesterol calculation rather than the actual LDL cholesterol. So he said that's kind of a weird test. Not sure where that happened. But he said typically for cholesterol, if you're having eggs like I am, if you're having red meat, your cholesterol is probably going to be a little bit higher than most. But he said something that as I start prep, as I probably eat a little bit less red meat, maybe eat a little bit less eggs and a little bit less fat, then my cholesterol might go down a little bit. But he said the overall cholesterol, triglycerides, and the HDL are all normal ranges. If they were all elevated, that'd be more of a concern, but since it's just the LDL, not too big of a concern. And he said, once again, it's very slightly above the actual kind of reference range or reference interval. And then we go to the big question, what my testosterone and my free test are. So as you see, the reference is about 264 to about 900. In testosterone, I was right at the 600 mark, 605, which for adult male, as it says here, pretty much between the ages of 19 and 39. And then my free testosterone was 18.5, which he said was very solid. Once again, I do not have a ton of information. I'm not a lab technician. I'm just barely getting the blood work. Everything I've done so far is just general healthy practices, but I haven't really messed around with my blood work at all or ever even thought about it. So we're just getting a good baseline. And as I mentioned, this is probably the highest my test is going to be for the most part. Oh, here comes Maisie. You want to come up here? This is probably the highest my test is going to be as like I'm entering prep, ending a bulk where I obviously have plenty of food, plenty of rest, recovery. So yeah, we'll definitely do a test after my show as well to see. But yeah, 600. He did say for the most part nowadays, most labs he gets is anything above 500 is pretty good. And here, oh Maisie, no, that's not for you. No, come here. And he'll rarely have someone below the age of 30 above 700. Just isn't really common these days without some sort of elevating substance. So I'm pretty happy with 600. And he said the free testosterone was very solid. He said anything above, honestly, 15 is adequate. So very happy there that my test is decent levels. We'll definitely see how that holds up as we start prep and get deep into prep. Next up, we've got the hemoglobin A1C. He said very average. Once again, in that reference range. DHEA, sulfate, he said was a little high. It was a little bit high, and I don't think I take a supplement for that, but I'll definitely something I'll look into. But once again, he said not a huge deal, especially if you're overall healthy as an individual, don't have any underlying conditions. Same thing with the cholesterol. It's not going to be a huge deal. And then we move on to cortisol. Cortisol levels, very average, pretty normal for the AM, which I took this test in the AM right around 13. So managing my stress pretty well, because if you have a high cortisol level, it's going to be hard to lose fat, hard to lose body weight, overall water weight. Your body will kind of be in a state of stress and fatigue. So glad to see my cortisol levels are normal. Prostate specific, vitamin D is elevated because I do take a vitamin D supplement. So it looks like I might not need that supplement, or maybe I'll cut it down to maybe just once or twice a week, just because it looks like I do get an adequate amount of vitamin D. Then we'll kind of scroll down. C-reactive protein, cardiac, he didn't really touch on that much, but it looks like I'm in the normal range. Insulin is a little bit low. He did think that my insulin might be a little bit higher, or he would like to see it a little bit higher. But once again, I was fasted in the morning, and he said your insulin will kind of change throughout the day. So not a big deal there. Everything else is pretty much normal. So good news, we're not low on test, and we're pretty normal levels as far as everything goes. Definitely gonna be curious to see. I'll probably test my blood again. He said anywhere between like 1 week to 3 months after your show. My guess, I'll probably test it maybe like 2 or 3 weeks after my show. Obviously during that show and during prep, your hormones are gonna be basically the lowest they'll ever be. So if I'm gonna get my blood tested again in like the lowest or the hardest conditions my body's gonna be under, might as well get it done sooner rather than later. So maybe I'll get them tested like 2 or 3 weeks after the show, and then 3 or 4 months after the show as I kind of recover and reverse diet. And I was discussing with the doctor, I was like, I'll be honest, like how long should I take these tests for? How often should I do it? And he said maybe once or twice a year. It just kind of depends on the person, if they have concerns about their blood tests, whatever it might be. But they really haven't had these tests for too terribly long. He said 10, 15 years ago, this definitely wasn't a big thing. People weren't really getting these blood draws and blood work done. But he said definitely something to keep in mind moving forward, and get it done maybe once or twice a year just to check your levels out, that kind of thing. But overall, pretty excited that my blood work did come back. I'd say relatively normal, as well as decent test levels, as well as some free testosterone. The big thing there is I definitely think I've earned that, if that makes sense. So like, I didn't go in nervous, like, oh my gosh, my test is gonna be low. Like, I have a good libido, I have overall good energy, I have good strength, I have good muscle mass. So I'm not too concerned about it, but it's something I want to get done and tested, because once again, I do live a very healthy lifestyle. I make sure I get my steps in. I train hard, I don't drink alcohol, I try to minimize unhealthy foods, I take no drugs. So it's one of those things where I expected this, just nice to have a little bit of confirmation, hey, you are in the healthy ranges, that kind of thing. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the testosterone results, the blood tests. I just want to keep you guys up to date, make sure that I'm being as transparent as I can on the channel, giving you guys as much information as I can. I'll go ahead and throw up a quick edit of a chest and arm workout I did the other day. I just want to wait to film this video until I got my results and spoke with the doctor about them. But yeah, without further ado, enjoy the edit.
I don't know what to find, I don't know what to look for. Can you give a clue? You and your beat up guitar always seem to move me like a superstar. What's the story about you? What's the story behind that sad tattoo you're trying to hide? I think I've heard it before in a movie line. We can write our own ending this time.
also realized I definitely did not film an outro after that workout, so here's the outro. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you leave any comments about topics you want me to cover in the prep series moving forward. Otherwise, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Oh, and before anyone gets mad at me, there's Maisie. Maisie, say hi. Just in case you missed her this video.